I'm just going to take a record of the meeting. Your images won't be recorded. I'll put a logo over it, and that's just so that we can put it online so that taking minutes is easier. I sent out an agenda to everybody. I hope you got it. Graham, I don't think, do we have a new member of the Community Council visible? I can't see.
I don't have word yet.
No. Okay, that's fine.
I'll chase.
So
I'll chase on this week.
okay, that's fine. So I just note that I've had apologies from Millport Motors a minute ago, and I think I've just had apologies and a quick report from the school, which I'll do when it's time. And I've had apologies from the from the town hall, but I've got a report from them as well. So what we thought we might try and do, and this is a total experiment, so feel free to feedback, positive or negative. We just wanted to begin by opening with a bit of a discussion, just an island discussion, so that we could hear your opinions. And I was going to try and give about 20 minutes to the discussion, and then we'll move into the reports. And so the topic of the discussion is going to be about the second homes council tax. I did, Gregor can't be here this evening, but I asked him to kind of just give me some notes. So just to get everybody started, I wanted to give you some facts about it. If I look twitching, it's because I'm just checking no one else is coming in. So this is from Gregor. He's in Leeds. He says, sorry. The local place plan survey found that 57.9% didn't support an increase in the second home council tax, suggesting it would kill the economy and second home owners would leave the island and local businesses would suffer. 28.4% disagreed and 13.8% didn't know. The North Ayrshire Council survey, as part of their consultation for the proposed policy, found 59.3% didn't think they should charge for a council tax premium. So that's 2% higher than our findings on the island. In terms of our councillors, 3 voted in favour, and that was Alan Hill, Scottish National Party, Ian Murdoch, Independent, and Eleanor Collier, Scottish National Party, and 2 voted against. Tom Marshall, who's here tonight, Scottish Conservative and Unionist, and Todd Ferguson, Scottish Conservative and Unionist. We've got lots of stats, like the Islands Communities Act assessment states that 30% of North Ayrshire's second homes are located on Cumbrae, and that's 451 of them, 39% on Arran, and 31% on the mainland. There are also on Millport 60 designated holiday lets on the island. And there are 300 on Arran. And it was reported in 2018 that in the zone covering the centre of Millport, 341 out of 796 homes were second homes. That's 42.8% higher than the rate for any zone in Scotland. And the estimated total population of the island has contracted by 12%. So in 2001, it was 1,400, and in 2020, it was 1,200 odd. So the gross increase in tax on Cumbrae will be around £500,000. The total net income generated by the tax across the whole of North Ayrshire will be 1.3 million, of which 130,000 will go to affordable homes. Gregor had a long look at it, and his view was that the island community's impact assessment, which was required to be carried out, and that's a specific act that says you can't cause detriment to islands. It says the policy would be applied across all North Ayrshire, and it is intended to have the same impact across the whole area. It is recognised, however, that the impact of such a change could be proportionately greater across the island communities. And it also says in Cumbrae, it is recognised that the type of second home accommodation proportionately across bands A and B may not lend itself to be suitable for more permanent island living. It suggests that the housing demand and supply are not regarded as a major issue on Cumbrae. So that's the reason for bringing in the second council home, doubling the council tax. And the type of properties available don't match the type required. So we looked at what we could do, and are just now stopping to frame this conversation. And we could challenge the impact assessment and say, which is factual, that the impact assessment for Arran and for Cumbrae are basically carbon copies of each other, just with the names swapped out. and that Arran and Cumbrae are not the same kind of an island. They're very, very different. And therefore, the impact assessment isn't, for us, we would consider robust enough. And we could say an inadequate or flawed assessment. We could also challenge it on the second count, which is failure to mitigate negative impacts. So when you do an impact assessment, you have to say whether or not it's negatively going to impact a group or a people. And if it is, and you acknowledge it is, you have to find some way to make that impact better. So is there a way in which we could go back and say what you've done disproportionately impacts on our small island, on our economy? What are you going to do about it? But we can't take any of these measures without having the views of the whole island. So I'd like to just open up to a 20-minute discussion and get all of your views. Who'd like to go first? Yay, Scott.
Yeah, I'll just sort of continue. Good evening, everyone. Continue what I'd already sort of commented on this, and I know Councillor Ferguson brought up the comments I made as well. So yes, the second homes, most of which are within the sort of primary area of the conservation area, most of them are not suitable for year-round living. We know that through the energy efficiency measures that we've been looking at through the Carbon Neutral Islands project. They would require massive overhaul of heating systems. They're not capable of taking a lot of the renewable technologies and insulation measures that we would see outside of the conservation area, which means getting them up to a standard where somebody could comfortably live there year round is very, very difficult. It would be very costly. So if we have a situation where these second homes become primary homes, then we could see quite a big spike in fuel poverty cases. More likely, the situation could arise that they will not be second homes and people can't afford to live in them as primary homes, so they could just sit empty. And I don't think either option there is a positive one.
Okay, noted. And I think if whatever response we put back as a community, Scott, I think we'd want to get something from you around that as part of it. Does anybody else want to make any comments? They don't have to be highfalutin comments.
Hi, Ian Harrison. I've got a house in West Bay, the bottom half of a Victorian villa. First and foremost, I think it's absolutely disgusting and will do nothing for the island, but I'm sure most of you agree with that. The other thing is North Ayrshire Council say it will raise 1.3 million, but they're only prepared to spend 130,000 on anything to do with affordable housing. So my query is, if you've taken 1.3 million because there's not enough affordable housing, why do you not spend the 1.3 million on affordable housing? And the other thing is, most people voted against this, yet North Ayrshire Council decided they were going to do it anyway. These are just a couple of my points.
I agree with those comments, but I think the topic that we're debating now is kind of what we're going to do about it. So I think I agree with you that there's this sense on the island, it doesn't fit. What's been decided doesn't fit what our island needs. And what we've identified is there are two ways in which we could look at it. One is, do we say that, as Scott's just started to say, do we say it's not possible and therefore the impact assessment isn't right? Or do we go in and do we start to say, what are you going to do financially to make better the damage that you're doing on the island? Do we ask for that as an assessment? Because for us, we feel that the impact assessment as a community council, we feel that providing for North Ayrshire Council to provide two mirroring impact assessments for two entirely different island economies, where one's got very small properties and one's got much larger properties, and where they've both been over history developed in totally different ways, we don't feel that that's an adequate impact assessment. That's one of the things, but we want to check whether all of you agree with that before we go forward and say that as a community view.
Well, definitely. Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else want to make any comments? This is not being a productively good debate. Thank you for coming in, Ian.
Alex, me again. Just on that, one of the biggest lessons learned from the CNI project to date, because we've got 6 islands that are obviously all working on the same project, is just how different each one is. And almost every document that's been produced as a result of this, and published even by Scottish Government, it usually starts with a line along the sense of every island is different, and one size does not fit all. So I think there's, whilst it's not specific to this point, I think there's plenty of evidence recently that supports that you cannot treat 2 islands the same way.
Okay, thank you. Graham?
Yeah, just reinforce what was said before. I mean, all the speciality of housing in Millport, the special problems that come with housing have been identified in various reports on Millport, the economic baseline report, the local place plan, etc. And yeah, they're well recognised and they've been accepted. They're in the Islands Plan 2, our Cumbrae Island Plan, it's referred to. But just going on from that, I wondered, I think the Isle of Bute has introduced the increase as well. I think it has, but I wondered if it was worth making contact with other islands that might be in a similar situation. Islands like Tiree are different, as Scott's pointed out. There's a lot of different islands, but we do have ones like Bute, Rosse, town of Rosse, which have similar properties and probably will have even worse issues, actually.
I think that's a good idea, but I think right now in this, we've got media coming to us to ask what our response is. We need an island response that actually reflects what the island actually feels, but also has some value and can get us something. So our view is that maybe we've been talking about it and we're not sure whether we think saying that the way that the impact assessment has been simply cookie cuttered across both islands, we do not feel is adequate. And, you know, as Scott's saying, every island's different, and then talking about that. But then also, if this is a tax that's going to take a tax, and if the tax disproportionately impacts our island, what do we get back? Because it's an impact assessment. Where is the value to that impact, and how is it assessed? We do have 3 councillors here. So does anyone else from the community want to say anything? If you do just want to gnash your teeth, you can just gnash your teeth and then we'll have it done with. Angus?
I think I agree that, you know, the impact assessment doesn't sound adequate in terms of its robustness or consistency. I think it's right to challenge that as a first step. I think I would fully support that.
Okay, thank you. So can I go to oh, sorry, Neil and Yvonne, you've got your hand up, a real hand.
Sorry, Alex, we don't know how to politely ask.
It's fine, I'll take an actual hand, always take a hand.
Thank you. One of our suggestions was that you should look at your Class A, your Council Tax A and B bands separately from your other bands. I don't know the proportion of homes that are above, second homes that are above Council Tax B. Obviously a much smaller proportion, but you've got to look at the fact that there are 2 worlds in the second homes on Cumbrae. There are the small flats that are no good for families. There are the large houses that would be ideal for families and could be very useful if families can come here to actually support the school and support the community year round. I just think that they've used a sledgehammer to crack a nut here. It's not been looked at in enough detail to actually split out the fact that there is 2 diverse holiday communities here.
That's a really good point, and I think in a way that goes with the spirit of what this second home council tax is trying to do, and I accept that. I think, okay, we will incorporate that into any feedback that we have. I don't know that that split off the top of my head. I'm not sure. Well, the council should, because they collect the council tax. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Does anybody else want to come in? Okay, shall I start? Hang on, I'm looking to see. Oh, there's Councillor Murdoch. I can see you on my screen top. Can I bring you in first?
Yeah, what would you like to know?
Well, the island's quite vexed about the what's happened in terms of the second home council tax. And we were just giving the opening of this meeting over to a discussion so that we could get a sense of how the island feels and then talk about what we do about it. And I don't know whether you have any views, because I know that you're for the second home council tax.
I'll tell you what I'm against. I'm against houses lying empty for most of the year. I'm certainly against that. If the second home's rented out, then the council tax will pay for itself, and somebody's getting the use of it. But there's no point of a property sitting for 11 months of the year lying empty. And if it's not sitting for 11 months lying empty, then the council tax will be paid. As far as discussing this is concerned, I haven't been on one of your meetings for quite a while because I've got a conflict with another meeting. It clashes. It's really difficult to be in two meetings at the one time. However, I made the effort to come on tonight to see, and this is a prime example of issues that I've raised in the past with your meetings. Your meetings are only an hour long. There is no way that you can discuss this fully unless it's a 2-hour meeting. Every other community council is a 2-hour meeting. So if you're going to discuss this and other subjects, I would like to see your meetings going to 2 hours. There's no way you can cover it in an hour.
We can go back again and ask the island, but in the past we have asked them, and the island really quite likes having quite shortish meetings. And so what we're trying to do is an experiment, is a hybrid, and what we'll do is we'll go back and get feedback. And if people want to have much longer meetings, then we will respond to the community. But we tend to get quite a lot of people coming onto the meetings because they feel like they've reported to us, they feel like they get an overview of what's going on without it having to take up their whole evening. But I'll take that back to the island, and we'll get feedback in terms of from everybody how they feel about a more discursive form of a meeting.
Well, I mean, that's fair enough. However, every meeting I've been on is rapid fire, report after report after report. When you get to councillors' reports at the end or any other subject, you don't have any time left. So it's the only community council that does an hour. Every other one does 2 hours.
Okay, that's noted. And community, we will take that back and have a discussion about it. That's why we've tried to flip it this way round and to begin with the discussion so that everyone can feel involved. Councillor Marshall.
Sorry.
Sandra, did you want to come in with a community response?
Yeah. Sorry, I felt that the councillor didn't actually answer your question as to why he voted for it. Perhaps we could go back to him and give him the opportunity to answer that question, why he voted, why he thinks it's a good thing.
Well, I think I did answer it.
Most of the second homes, sorry, I'm still speaking. Most of the second homes are used on a very regular basis on this island. They are not lying empty and the council tax is being paid. Why do you think that doubling it for somebody that uses their property is a good thing? And I would ask Councillor Hill the same question, because obviously he thinks it's right that it's doubled for people that use their second home regularly.
Well, I'm quite happy to look at the stats if you've got stats, but the research that I did, my own personal research on it was that the majority of these properties are lying empty the majority of the time. If you can prove otherwise, that's fine. I'm happy to look at that. But that was what I based my decision on. Most of these properties, as far as I could see, were lying empty. And as I say, if they're not empty and they're being let out, then they're covering the cost of the council tax anyway. So I've already said that.
Yeah, but I don't think people are renting them out. Obviously, they're using them, so why double the council tax for them? It just seems greedy, as a lot of people have said.
So to Councillor Hill, can I put the question to you?
Yeah, so it's a complex issue, and there will potentially be some negative effects. I don't disagree with that, and the report was passed on the basis of assurances from officers that that will continue to be monitored, and if there are negative effects, and if a particular band of people, Don mentioned council tax bands A and B, potentially it might be people on a fixed income. If there are issues, then obviously those can be taken back and looked at, but it also has to be taken in context that North Ayrshire was the 31st of 32 councils to introduce it. And all the rest of the Highlands and Islands have been paying second homes council tax since a year ago in April. We're one of the last councils to introduce it, and it's been introduced universally so far. There isn't a single council that hasn't introduced it in full. That said, I am quite happy to pull information together, and if there are particular issues arising or particular groups of people that are being notably affected, then that's obviously something we can gather information on, and then make a case to have it reviewed, because it was agreed on that basis, and that's in the report. And the Community Council is probably in a good place to actually assist potentially in gathering that kind of information. There are also options open to people round about what they do in terms of council tax. As Ian mentioned, if you lease the property for 70 days or more per annum, you can re-register the property as a business and apply for business rates. And unless you own 3 or 4 properties, you won't pay any council tax at all. And the small business bonus schemes mean you also won't pay rates. So there are a number of different options open to people, depending on their own circumstances. But I think it would also be useful if the Community Council was a conduit in terms of addressing any particular hardship, which can then be taken back and looked at.
Okay. Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, thanks. Just to jump in and what Alan said, I mean, if a case can be made by the community, I would imagine that all 5 councillors would, I certainly would, listen to that case. However, in this instance, and at that meeting and the investigations that we did, a decision had to be made, and that decision was made. And as Councillor Hill said, the majority of councils have already done it. It's not like we're the only one. And I think that, it's up to the community now. If you put a case forward, I'd be very surprised if any of the 5 North Coast councillors didn't help you. But it would have to be a very good case to come back on a council decision now. But that's what we're here for. We're here to try and help, but a decision had to be made on the day.
I just want to say that we created a place plan. We did a huge amount of research into the island. That the findings of that were shared. And before this decision was made, everybody knew that 42.8% of homes on Millport are second homes, and it's the highest rate in Scotland. So this little island is the most impacted across the whole of Scotland, and the whole of our island is built on a Victorian model of second homes and small units. So I think for us to now have to go and make the case again, I have a query about whether or not the reporting and the impact assessment, which is supposed to do that under statute, whether that was done in a way that is appropriate. We don't feel that it is. So we will look at it. We are really disappointed. Graham, can I bring you in?
Yeah, it's just a quick question for clarity for me. Is there any scope within the council for Cumbrae being treated differently in this, where it could be dropped in Cumbrae but still maintained on the mainland and in Arran? Does the council have that ability?
Yeah, I can back on that. The council's got flexibility to decide to implement it in whatever way that the council chooses. It's worth bearing in mind that the vote of the council was 21-7. So even if every single one of the Cumbrae councillors had voted differently, it wouldn't have made any difference in terms of the decision that was made on the day. So a case is going to have to be made that convinces a majority of the council. I personally think we would struggle to make a case that exempted an island, but I think there is a case to be made potentially around other issues if we can gather information that makes that and evidences it.
Okay. Councillor Marshall, do you want to come in?
Yes, I was one of the 7 that voted against it. We questioned carefully the impact assessment, and we didn't think it was fair, particularly in the case when Millport has got some 42% of second homes. So, yeah, I would totally support you going back and trying to make the argument, but we've been snowed under with taxes. I mean, this is just another one of the taxes that are coming down the road. Next year, we're going to have a visitor tax, which will affect island economies as well. All the councils, as Alan has said, have put in this second home tax, and it's now in the budget. To undo that is going to be quite difficult. So, but I would support you in what you want to do over it. But that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is if you are a second homeowner, what you do about it. And there's a whole range of things you can do. And the Director of Finance realised that because people could convert them into short-term lets, in which case you would not be paying a council tax, you would be paying business rates. And if your combined rateable values are less than £12,000, you wouldn't pay any business rates. You could also transfer your second home into a limited company or a company, and it could be leased back to you. You could also make some arrangement where your family owns the house and not yourself. So there's a range of things to do, but the Conservative group were totally opposed to it. If you go and look at what happened in Wales, because Wales in some cases has gone not just to an extra 100%, they've gone to an extra 200%. It has caused real problems for the housing market in some of these towns, and it's very hard to sell houses. I don't agree that people shouldn't be able to have a second home and they should be charged for it. You can have a second car, a second boat, a second this. So I don't think it applies to Millport. I don't think there is a housing shortage in Millport. If people want to come to Millport, they can find a house. They might not find the one they like, which they can live in for all the year round. But that's our view. Councillor Ferguson and I voted against that. But the socialists in charge of the council thought we really need the money, and the councils in Scotland are running through this whole process of tax and spend, not tax and save, but tax and spend, tax and spend. But to put a better gloss on it, yesterday the council tax went up by 7%, which is one of the lowest ones in Scotland. So that's my comment at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask one more question before I bring in Councillor Murdoch? So for us, we've been wondering whether or not we would query the impact assessment and say we don't think doing a like-for-like one copycat for Arran and for Cumbrae is enough. We also were wondering whether or not there could be some mitigation for the impacts. Are you saying that you think the mitigation might be that we look at council like A, B banded properties, look at how many of those and see whether or not we could get some exclusions?
It's very difficult to say, really. You just need to try and make a case. Certainly, as Alan said, the Director of Finance said we'll look at it as the year goes on. But there may be other reasons for asking for a mitigation. It's not a blanket ban at this stage. Although it's going to come in April 5th, you're all going to find your second home council tax doubled.
Thank you. Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, just to again highlight that I gave a kind of simplified version, which of if the houses or properties rented out, then it'll cover the council tax. But I think that Tom obviously highlighted the various options and alternatives that could be used. So there are ways around it. But as I say, the main aim for me personally, I can't speak for everybody, was about empty properties. But as far as anybody that's got a second home is concerned, Tom put it probably a lot better than I did. It's not just rented out. There are options and there are various ways of doing it.
Thank you. Councillor Hill.
Yeah, Ian kind of repeated largely what I was going to say. Yes, there are options, and people need to look at the options that are open to them. Sorry, and then it would be useful if the community cares, if there is particular hardship in particular areas, or if it's particular bans, etc. That information can be collated. Then we can obviously take that back to have a look at it again. I would just get one proviso in case people rush off to use it. I'm not sure transferring to a business and then leasing back to yourself would necessarily avoid the tax, but it's a possibility, but I don't think so.
I have a query about that and I don't know enough about it, but I believe if you do that and then you sell the property, you're suddenly having to face capital gains tax issues. I think there are more tax implications to it than it seems like a simple, clever idea. So I wouldn't suggest it to someone who didn't take tax advice. Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, again, probably a good time to qualify it and say that obviously before any alternatives or options were explored or taken, they should be explored by a legal or financial advisor. We're not here to give you advice as to what to do, and I know that Tom's outlined what can and can't do. Alan's a solicitor. I'm not, but we're not here to give financial or legal advice. I mean, obviously, we need to find that out yourself. But I think it was important, probably, the points that Tom made to highlight that there are options, but obviously you've got to check that they're legal and the correct options for yourself.
Okay, thank you. All right, everybody. So what we're going to do, we'll go and take away your various comments. If you want to email with other comments because you don't want to speak out here, then please drop me a line. You can find my email on the website and I'll respond to you. We're going to take your comments on board and then we're going to kind of regroup as a community council and then decide what we do next, and we'll let you know. I'm going to just move on with the agenda. So I see in the Cumbrae Forum that we've got the police. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Hill.
Just to apologise, I have to go to another meeting, but I obviously wanted to be here for this particular bit of it, just to hear what everybody had to say. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi there, shall I start my bit?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, winter months and obviously the storm that passed recently, there was a lot of impact within the community, especially amongst the elderly. Systems provided up at the hospital, reaching out to people who were struggling through the lack of electricity, mainly for their medical equipment that no longer worked. So the hospital staff did the best they could with what they had, but there was a lot of people left alone for an extended period of time without any contact. I don't know how we can fix that issue. Even if it's only to attend, make sure that they're warm and some reassurance for the elderly and more vulnerable within our community. But I feel there could have been more done for those. And those, I have heard stories where people were left alone for 48 hours in the cold. So maybe there's something we can do as a community, or if there's something the council can come up with, that there's more resilience on the island through those types of extraordinary periods of weather. Other than that, after the periods of weather again, Cumbrae seems to take an extraordinary amount of time to get assistance in clearing items such as the roadways, which had lots of rubble blown up onto them and brought onto the roadways through the gaps in the walls and on the lower lying periods around the island. 2 weeks, I think it was, before the roads were swept and the rubble cleared. Some of the branches that were broken on the trees, especially around Cumbrae Bay, they've only been sorted in the last week. Again, resilience team and members of the public within the community did most of the work. They were out there cutting up the trees, moving them off the roads, ensuring that members of the public could move around. But again, same with the last time when we had the flood, there wasn't the response I got when requested for additional resources to be brought to the island just didn't happen. And it appears to have repeated itself this time as well. So I don't know if there's something that we've done. I know we have the issue with the ferry, and especially during the flood and during the storm, the ferry was off, but the resilience on the island the official resilience on the island seemed to be minimal, but the resilience of the community to step up was commendable, I would say. But anyway, that's just my bit for the storm and previous incidents I've been involved with on the island. Don't know if anybody within this meeting has comments or anything they want to share regarding that.
I would just like to say I'm glad you said what was the word you used there? The resilience.
Official resilience.
The official resilience, because I was about to jump in about resilience in the community, because I know that they went above and beyond. But yeah, the official resilience, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm. So, well, I'll move on then. Since, as regards to other calls and incidents the police have responded to, as you'd expect, winter months and with the storm, most of the calls myself and my colleagues responded to were for welfare checks. Many were carried out, and just as we say, pop in, make sure people are okay and they've got what they need and they're managing. Regarding to crime-wise, we've had a few incidents recently, mainly assaults. So we've had assaults, breaches of the peace, and also there's been a reported fraud as well. So those are the current crimes that are progressing, if you like, on the island at the moment that the police are dealing with. And at least 2 of them are going to lead to a report to the Procurator Fiscal. Okay. So
Thank you. I had one question, which is that all of you've changed who all of you are, and I just wondered whether you could say who all of you are on the island now, because some people on the call may not have met you.
Okay, I'm still the same. I just got
I know, but you've got new people in. Haven't you got new day people who've taken over from Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie left, and that's PC Stuart Payton. So he's now our second permanent resident officer on the island. But for me, yeah, it's year 3.
Yeah, I know. But Stuart, I met Stuart on the ferry, and he was going off to go.
Yeah. Give you a mention.
So if any of you see a police officer you don't recognise going past, flag them down and say hi.
Absolutely.
Stuart. Yeah. Okay, that's what I meant, rather than accusing you of not recognising you. Sorry. Thank you, Graham.
Just a quick one. We used to get a statistics report from the police in the past, and I noticed other community councils seem to get that. So is it possible to get monthly figures? Or?
For all crimes and incidents within, say, the last month, yeah, we can certainly do that. There would only be the bare bones of it, how many incidents we report to. But I know there's been 31 separate incidents that the police have responded to in the last month.
Yeah, it's really, if we could just get them month by month, then you get the point of comparison as the year goes by.
Okay, yes, yeah, I'll bring that for the next one.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good to see you. Thank you. Over to Scott. Oh, sorry, over to John. I apologise, John. I saw you. You're there.
No worries. Yeah, okay. So on behalf of the Coast Guard, this month we covered off primarily looking at ordnance and pyrotechnics, especially with the stuff that gets washed up after the storm. We made a point of checking out the status of the island's helipad, the electrics, and the pier, and the access to the pier, and restowing the life-saving equipment around the coast. Some members of the team went over to the mainland for a particularly interesting operation, which was based around the lessons from the Costa Concordia disaster back in 2012. Those of you may remember, that was a cruise ship that sank in shallow water. with that in mind, that activity covered what would happen in a multi-agency response should an event like that occur in Clyde, including obviously the maritime search and rescue element that would be brought by the Coast Guard.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I never used that one. It's you know.
Sorry, I've muted them. Sorry.
Bit confused. All right, sorry. Thank you. We took ownership of a brand new vehicle as well. So we're now driving a fully electric Toyota ProAce. The remainder of the training this month is probably going to focus on vehicle familiarization and fighting over the keys. One of our highly esteemed members of the team was off the island today and completed their officer in charge course. And we're also running a recruitment drive starting on Monday, running until the end of March, because we've got one space to fill in the island's team. So we're looking for anybody who lives or works on the island who fancies a challenge and who meets a few basic criteria. So I'd encourage you to spread the word. We're also looking to run open days and drop-in events between now and the end of March. Only other thing in terms of additional resources for assistance to support resilience on the island, the other emergency services on the island, ourselves included, are here permanently, and I would use this as an open offer to our colleagues. Obviously, our respective remits are different, but if it's extra bodies that are needed, then there are mechanisms to call each service out. So we're here to be used to support other services if needed. So that's all from me. Happy to take any questions. Otherwise, back to you, Alex.
Thank you. Any questions? Right, I'm just going to move on a bit as swiftly as possible. So IOCTA, I heard from Scott Ferris. He said that IOCTA has been working with North Ayrshire Council to look at how some of the state of the front is improved. So he said he's actively doing that at the moment. He wanted to pass that on as a message. And over to CCDC.
Alex. Just a brief report from CCDC. So the Garrison House repairs, we're delighted to say with a further 4 windows have been installed on the ground floor this week. And hopefully following on from tomorrow's scheduled site visit, we should have the approval from the architects to proceed with the works on the south elevation, and the relocation of the scaffolding will follow soon after. The weather and the cold temperature slowed progress, which prevented this from happening a couple of weeks ago, which is when we were hoping for. Within our library, the plans for the refurbishment of what is currently the children's section, the computer suite and reception area are well underway, and new flooring in these areas and painting will be carried out next month, ready for the arrival of new furniture, etc. at the beginning of April. Within Garrison, the rest of Garrison House, the gallery will be welcoming a new exhibition from Julia Griffin next week, and that'll be with us for approximately 6 weeks. We're also working with North Ayrshire Council on being able to offer additional storage space for the community shop. Look at a location south of the biomass store, and we're hoping once North Ayrshire Council hear about the securing of funding, that we'll be able to commence works on that. Garrison House is also hoping to host 2 SHS events in April and August, which are Food and Craft and a Summer Gala this year. That'll incorporate local crafters on Cumbrae and attract new crafters and hopefully appeal to locals and visitors alike. And further details will be shared once we've hopefully got dates confirmed for this year. On to our AGM, and we held our rescheduled AGM on the evening of Tuesday, the 25th of February, and delighted to say we had an excellent turnout, and the evening went very well with lots of input from our members. We also received great news, additional good news, and Gray may be adding to this later. We received a funding award from Crown Estate Scotland's Community Capacity Grants Programme of 29,550. This grant will finance consultancies to support preparation of what we hope will be a strong bid to tender for the operation of the Millport Marina. The appointed consultant will advise on marina operation and marketing, market assessment and economic analysis. So we're looking forward to that, and that ends the report for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Does anybody have any questions?
No worries.
No. Thank you. So Cumbrae Forum, Lorraine, please.
Just a brief report from Cumbrae Forum as well. Our lunch club continues to be well attended, and we provide takeaway meals for anyone that is unable to come due to ill health. We're planning a few events for the coming year, which include the Sunday lunch for our lunch club members, VE Day celebrations, a Scottish night, and this year being our 20th year anniversary, we are looking at putting on some celebrations for that. We're hosting a volunteers lunch as a thank you for our 40 volunteers on the 16th of March, and we're continuing to work closely with the school. Nothing much else to report, Alex. That's about it.
Thank you. That sounds like quite a lot that you're doing, as well as
It
redoing the
is, yeah.
website and tidying up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone got any questions for the forum? No. Millport Motors have had apologies. Millport Golf Club.
Hi, Alex. Just to say, so we had our AGM at the start of the month, and our new captain is John McGarity. He sends his apologies. He's actually playing golf in St Andrews today, so it's all right for some. We have a bit of good information to let you know that we now have a defibrillator installed at the golf club. So that's outside the ladies' locker room. We were successful in a bid from the British Heart Foundation, so that's up and running now. Season opener is on the 29th of March. We also had some storm damage with quite a lot of trees being blown over onto the course, and just want to pass on a huge thanks to everybody who helped clearing that out. That was a good sign from the community. It wasn't just the golf club members. There's lots of help that we got. So thanks to everyone who was involved in that. We also now have a dedicated social convener, and for the next coming year, we're looking to have some more social events which are open to the public, such as an extra Quizoki and a Ceilidh night. So that's basically the golf club report.
Thank you. I had one question, and it'll come up later, I guess, when Thomas does his piece and we started talking about flower beds on the island. We've been looking for some wood chippings, and I know you chipped quite a lot, but have you taken all of your wood chippings away, or do you have any more spare?
I would need to speak to Kenny Mates, who's in charge of all that sort of stuff. But yeah, definitely just drop us a note afterwards and we can see what we can do.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you. And then Cumbrae Primary sent a report saying this month has had a very well attended Scottish concert in the school. All children performed from early years through to P7, and the audience was treated to songs, music, poems and dancing. The Cumbrae's Burns Club kindly donated the prizes and trophies. P6-7 have been enjoying outdoor learning lessons at the FSC, such as rock climbing, rock pooling and pond dipping. And this week, the whole school will have an assembly from the Young Islanders Network team, who will listen to the children's views about living on an island, positives and negatives. They're also going to link virtually with other island schools across Scotland in the future to help the children understand the similarities and the distant differences. Towards the end of term, they're going to be welcoming Generation Science to the school for science workshops across the school about changing climate, and they're going to visit the Glasgow Science Centre to learn about ocean life. The trip is kindly funded by the Cumbrae Forum. P1 to P5 will also be visiting the Screen Machine towards the end of March to view The Wild Robot, which is about a robot marooned on an island and has to learn survival skills to mix with the island inhabitants. Seems like a full theme of island living on at the primary school. So thank you. That's the primary. And now to Field Studies Council, please, Duncan.
Hi, the season has started with 2 full centre bookings from the By-High Council, a religious group, and the United Irvine Church of Scotland, who brought over 200 guests between them to the centre. 4 primary schools have also braved the recent bad weather, visiting from Bannockburn, Lawmuir from Bells Hill, Ailey Primary from Greenock, and as Alex just said, Cumbrae Primary School have also made 5 visits round to us this one. So our first university group has arrived this week from Cork University, despite a 4-hour delay at Cork Airport after a bird strike, and then a delay at Largs with Sunday's gale. They eventually made it. And also this week we have Southampton University have arrived to carry out a sampling programme on board the research vessel Actinia, which will continue every 3 months throughout the year. and I'm looking forward to having experienced it today. Oh my God, it's going to be a busy season. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Duncan?
No.
Over to probably hugely positive news from Angus.
Think not, Alex, unfortunately. So for a ferry committee update, not particularly good news in terms of what's going on in the ferry world. We had a new operations manager appointed in November. We spent quite a bit of time trying to get him up to speed with the community to make sure he can support the community. He's now left the organisation. So that's one frustration. We did meet with Calmac earlier this week with a senior manager from Calmac, and we expressed huge frustration over the lack of progressive Cumbrae issues over the last several years. It was quite a intense meeting for them and for us in terms of the way that panned out. Several members of the committee have now resigned due to their frustration with Calmac not doing anything in terms of any tangible actions, which is a huge frustration for when they're supposed to be turning themselves into something that's more service orientated. From contingency planning, again, part of the discussions were about how inadequate that was. The breakdown 5th of February with the Loch Fyne. They didn't manage to mobilise an overnight repair. They didn't manage to mobilise a spare vessel. They didn't manage to produce a passenger charter, which they have available to them. It relied on Duncan and the FSC vessel to get people off the island urgently who had to travel that morning. So again, we're hugely frustrated with that, and we gave them obviously a lot of raised a lot of concerns around about that. And in terms of the other point of contingency planning, we have touched on them, and the police talked about the lighting Cumbrae slip. That is something that we've raised both with them operationally, they need to do better with, and also to CMAL in terms of the rebuild the Cumbrae slip to say, look, if the slipway needs to be able to operate in the dark, and if the power goes off, you need to have a contingency in place for that. Summer timetable 2025. We will get a larger second vessel than the Loch Ridden. We're going to get the Isle of Cumbrae, which has its own issues, but it's a larger vessel in terms of providing larger vehicle capacity, so help mitigate some of the summer peak queues. We did have a positive engagement with Calmac about additional timetable sailings for the bank holiday weekends, Easter, May, August, and they also to extend into September weekends, which tend to be quite busy. But they came back with the same timetable as last year and said they're going to be slightly more flexible with the second vessel, but we need to take them to task on that, which was a frustration again. Ticketing, again, very poor news in terms of that. We'd hoped in October that they were going to go back to not having to collect tickets from the Cumbrae side, but they've looked at that and decided that their requirements to measure people on and off the boat both ways contractually, they will be scanning people, continue to scan people both ways. And that's another huge frustration about something that we thought was starting to go in a positive direction, and it's actually going backwards. They will now man the slip from end of March. The slipway will be manned from first ferry to last ferry, even whereas over the past year, 2 years since they introduced a new ticketing system, it's only been manned from about 8 o'clock till 6 o'clock. And the first few sailings, the last few sailings have been dealt with by the boat crew. So the slipway will be manned, which you will be able to buy tickets at the slipway from first vessel to the last vessel from the staff in the slipway, but it's a most inefficient way of operating, and we've continued to reinforce that. Other ticketing issues such as season tickets and multi-journey tickets are just zero progress with any of that. The ticketing system is there seems to be no public view of any progress with it. And a wider point, as part of the work I do with the Ferries Community Board, I've attended several meetings with Transport Secretary, and we met her recently, Cabinet Secretary for Transport, Fiona Hislop. She's strong views that the relationship with Calmac needs to be changed to more of a service relationship, but we're just not seeing any sign of that, either in this community or any of the other communities around the West Coast, and we've continued to reinforce that message. The community boards highlighted the significant concerns about the 18% fare rise we've seen over the past 2 years and the negative impact it's had in communities. So That's my update, and unfortunately none of it's particularly positive, so sorry about that, but there's a huge amount of effort going into trying to do that, and a huge amount of frustration with the committee around the lack of responsiveness for CalMac. That's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. And I know that some of your committee are getting PTSD from the meetings that they've been attending. So I know that it's been quite hard. I've seen the emails going. So thank you, and please keep up the good work. Thank you. So we're now going to move on to updates on Key Island projects. Gregor's not here for the place plan, so moving to Scott for carbon neutral.
Thanks, Alex. Good evening, everyone. So starting off with the sort of big news of it, CNI project as a whole has been included in the Scottish budget. So assuming that that goes through Parliament without any issues, then I'm afraid you're all stuck with us until at least March 2026. In terms of what we're doing on the island at the moment, we are well and truly into phase 1 of the Millport 130 solar and battery project. So that's within the housing scheme, focused primarily because it's outside of the conservation area. Phase 1 is for 15 houses with the lowest energy efficiency ratings. The technical surveys were conducted earlier this week by Valley Group, with the installs expected to start as early as next week and completed by the 31st of March. Just in the last 2 years, we've seen a 330% increase in the amount of solar on the island, all rooftop. So that's making a huge impact as we go forward to people's bills and to the energy efficiency of their properties. Unfortunately, however, our recent bid through Energy Redress for phase 2 of this project has been unsuccessful, so we'll be continuing to seek alternative funding options there. Both Diane and I have been spending a lot of our time recently on the RTS switch off. So that is for those that are on the dual meter system. You've probably seen adverts on television for this, etc. The islands, is being widely recognised that the islands are being disproportionately affected by this because of the type of heating systems that we have. Millport in particular, I think it's over 54% estimated to be affected by this particular switch off. We now sit on the Consumer Engagement Task Force with Ofgem. There's another meeting for that next week. We're gathering as much evidence as we can on the scale of this on Cumbrae, and that will be taken through to Ofgem and presented as to why more work needs to be happening on the islands. There are indications, however, from some of the energy companies that the 30th of June deadline is becoming more of a soft target than a deadline. The official line that's still being put out is that is the cut-off. However, it is also most likely to be a regional switch off rather than a complete shut off across the whole country. This is to allow them to better target their resources when it comes to switching over to the smart meters. The problems that they're facing at the moment are generally due to capacity for appointments. We're seeing that a lot on Cumbrae. People are phoning up and can't get appointments for several months. And also, when they do get an appointment, there are several streets in Millport that are not able to get a signal for the smart meter, and therefore the appointment either doesn't happen or ends up being wasted because they cannot install the new meter. These issues have been reported and are being widely documented by Ofgem. The other two things to bring up, obviously several things came from the local place plan, from the work that the Community Council did, that are relevant to the CNI project. The biggest one within this was the Community Energy Project, which we will be starting work on the initial feasibilities come April 1st as we go into the new financial year. So the idea there is to come up with several projects that could be feasible on the island and then to present that to the community so that the community has their say and a chance to voice their opinion on what projects are looked at in the future. This will be a long drawn-out process, but obviously I'll keep everybody updated as we go through it and work alongside the Community Council. And then finally, we are now able to offer thermal imaging services on the island. This helps with anyone that's experiencing energy efficiency problems, particularly around insulation and draft identification, etc. If you're interested, please just let myself know, and I'll be happy to help.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from anybody? Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to move on to the Millport Town Hall report. They say that despite the inclement weather recently, it still has a dry basement, which shows that the works they've done are successful. They're really hoping the work's going to be completed by Easter. The trustees and volunteers are undertaking tasks to dress the building ready for Open Doors Day sometime in July. Invitations are going to go out to community groups for private tours to see the storage areas available before the building is officially opened. Over to the marina, Graham.
Jan covered the funding that we've been offered by the Crown Estate, which is excellent. It's really important funding because at the moment it's intended to appoint an operator towards at the end of this year, beginning of next year, so that they can be involved in the further development of the marina plans. So because that will be going out to tender, it's really important that the community makes as strong a case as possible, and this money will go a long way towards helping us get the detailed case on the table and hopefully win the opportunity to run the marina by the community. That will maximise the returns to the community, of course, as well. Okay.
Thank you. Anyone got any questions on the marina? I don't think we have anyone here from the cathedral, so I'm going to move on to North Ayrshire Council. Thomas, your update.
Thank you, Alex. Just a quick update. I know we're behind time. So obviously the last few weeks has been a bit of a battering in terms of the storm, particularly in the mainland. We had some serious tree issues. We had literally hundreds, if not running into thousands of trees down, and we're still working our way through it as we speak, alongside some external support. In regards to Cumbrae, I know it took a bit of a hit the beach. I know the beach was affected. I know the sand had blown onto the promenade area. We've had the tractors over on several occasions now, trying to get the sand back to the way it was before, to move it back off the wall, to try and level it out, and to try and move some of the stones and seaweed about the beach to make it look a bit more presentable. And I believe with 2 tractors over on Tuesday, and things seem to have gone pretty well there. We also had the big HGV sweeper over as well, and we asked if residents could just not mind parking in Glasgow Street so we could get in there to get the majority of the road swept. And again, I understand that was largely successful. Plan is to send a small sweeper over in the next few weeks just to try and catch some of those back streets, so Howard Street, George Street and others that we can't get access to. And again, once we know the date for that, we'll try and provide information to you to ask residents if they could kindly refrain from parking there for the time sweepers in the area, just so we can get the area swept as good as possible. So I think that's all I've really got just now. We're looking at the roads maintenance programme for next year. It's just that I can't say any more about it because we're obviously still going through all the budget yesterday with some extra money for roads. We'll present the programme to Cabinet on the 18th of March. But if anyone is minded and watch the Cabinet meeting on the 18th of March, you will see the roads programme for next year in terms of the streets and the footways that we will be maintaining and redeveloping and resurfacing. Happy to take any questions.
Thomas, it's nice to see you. Thank you for coming. I think my comments are I've met your team, Darren, around the island with Sandra, who's here, and we had a look around in terms of all the planters and the planting beds. I then put that out to the community in the last few weeks, and helpfully, the community found that I'd missed 2 planters. That are the red planters by West Bay. So I need to go out and see them to see what size the plants are going to be. And then I'm going to be coming back to you. And it's quite an intricate partnership in which you're getting volunteers to weed some of the beds. We're doing whatever it is. We're talking also about creating a community orchard in Ninian Park. So we've got kind of quite a big plan moving on, and you're providing perennial plants. That means that hopefully the planters that we keep around the island stay looking bushy and green all the way through the year and can withstand storms. And I've been and bought wicking fabric, and I'll make water reservoirs in all the planters. So hopefully we have something that's really very low maintenance. And then we're going to be asking all of the community to support maintenance bits, for the bits that we really care about, like around the cenotaph, just so any volunteering goes into that. So that is all in train. Then the only other thing I wanted to say was, please could you ensure that the Japanese knotweed gets sprayed, because it wasn't sprayed last year. Could you make sure that's top of your plans, because it grew back into some of the places where it shouldn't. We'd really love to just get rid of it off the island.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't think it wasn't sprayed last year. I thought there were certain areas we couldn't reach, but I thought it was sprayed. But I'll look into that. Obviously, that's a priority. With regards to the planters, once again, thanks to the volunteers who are helping out to weed them and look after them. And once we get nice perennials in there, you get all year round, colour, and also it's a more sustainable way of planting. So that's great news.
Okay, so that's and thank you, Sandra, and the Women's Institute for helping with that. And also we've had some other volunteers. So Gail is going to be helping provide some hanging baskets. So it won't just be my very much more municipal bushes that I'm putting everywhere that don't die. So hopefully it'll still look lovely. Councillor Murdoch.
I need to watch how I say this, because I'm not telling Thomas's job, but the Japanese knotweed is sprayed every year. I've asked for it to be sprayed every year, and I know that the local street scene boys and the foreman made sure it was sprayed every single year that I've been a councillor.
We chased up last year around August, and that may be how my brain, I thought that we'd managed to miss it, and then we chased you, Thomas, but then it got too late because there's a set period. I'll come back to you, or maybe we'll just take this offline and remind ourselves of the set period so that we don't end up missing it. We were just looking at all of the stalks of it through the winter.
Okay, Alex, as Ian said, and I said, I'm surprised that we didn't do it, because we normally do it once a year. We have a database of every area and maps. What I'll do is I'll confirm the database when it was sprayed and when it's sprayed next year, because it's more important for next year, to be honest, than what happened the previous year. So let's fix it.
So if that's the case, then I totally take that back if I'm wrong. It would just be, we've still got lumps of it. We just want to get rid of it, please. And it's just knowing when you're planning it, and also for your teams to know the bits, because it's spreading underneath, going into new areas from the ones that we previously identified. That was all. Okay, so thank you. Does anyone have any more comments or questions for Thomas? Thank you for what you're doing with the resources that you have. Hugely appreciated. Councillors' updates. So, Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, thanks. Well, I think you all know what's been going on, and Thomas has just highlighted that the biggest thing that's happened recently, two biggest things that's happened recently, is the budget yesterday and the storm issues from the severe storm that we had. All of the council services over that period, in particular care at home and street scene, but the resilience committee on the island and members of the community were all absolutely magnificent. I think we all know that, and I think we're all very thankful for it, because in times like that you rely on volunteers more than anything else. But care at home and street scene were great. The day after the storm, the local street scene team were given the go-ahead to go out to work if they wanted to over the weekend. And I'll be honest with you, my experience is that those guys have not stopped. I think Thomas just kind of highlighted that just now, that those boys haven't stopped since the Saturday after the storm, the day after the storm. They've worked and worked and worked. They've been on the island dealing with trees in the first instance. They dealt with lots of trees in Skermley, Largs, Fairley, West Kilbride, right across the ward. I'd like to highlight the fact that these guys are working with a team of between 6 and 9 men. And the reason it fluctuates is obviously through sickness, absenteeism, whatever it may be. But there are no more, unless Thomas corrects me, but there are no more than about 9 of these guys for the whole of the North Coast. So when you consider the amount of work they've got to get through, in general terms, regardless of a storm, the resources are very, very tight, and they work magnificently. I've got a great relationship with the guys. They're all local guys, and they work well. As you probably know, there was the incident where the gentleman got caught in the water-filled hole at the bottom of the steps on the beach, and I contacted Thomas and I contacted the street scene guys themselves, and within hours they had that all taped off. You know yourself, it's been highlighted the amount of work they've done on Cumbrae shorefront, Largs shorefront. As I say, all the trees that they've done, and as Thomas highlighted as well, they're still working their way through it. A lot of the stuff, you've got 5 North Coast councillors. I'm pretty sure that we all reported stuff during the storms, and those guys are still working their way through it. There's a couple of trees up in Skermley when landed in the roof of a house, and I don't know how nobody was injured, to be quite honest, but there was some severe, dangerous conditions with trees coming down. A couple other things. There are the general issues, and Thomas has highlighted the fact that there was another £1 million put in roads yesterday, and obviously we'll see what comes out in the roads budget with that. However, at the budget yesterday there were continued cuts and a 7% increase in council tax. The Conservatives did a deal with the SNP to get the budget through. Obviously, they put an amendment in, and then they had a wee recess to come to an agreement, and that included an additional £1 million in roads, as was in the Conservative amendment. And there were other points of agreement that were made to get the budget passed. However, while supporting the budget, which included points in the Conservative amendment, it also means that they agreed that the rest of the budget, which included several cuts, including school crossing patrols, it means that they agreed with the rest of the budget. In order to support the budget and agree with it, to get it through, that means you're agreeing with all the other cuts and all the other doom and gloom that's in there, including the school crossing patrols, etc. And I couldn't bring myself to support that. So not keen on that one yesterday at all. I recorded my dissent in the budget. In Thomas's report, or Alex, you highlighted it about the types of plants for Cumbrae shorefront. We got a whole load of new perennials planted in Largs last year, and they have not survived. So you're absolutely right. It has to be the right type, the right variety, because the perennials that were put in Largs shorefront last year have not survived the winter. There's a whole load of other stuff, but as I say, time-wise, we're kind of tight, so I'll leave it to that.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Marshall.
Yes, I think as a mother stolen my thunder, so I wouldn't really add to the pain. Apart from saying that the budget process is quite difficult, the Labour Party wanted a 9% rise, and we agreed with the SNP to go for 7%. And we got these extra things like £250,000 for street scene and £1 million for roads. So if there are any particular street scene issues or roads issues that pertain to Cumbrae, let us know about them and we'll get them put into the programme. As Thomas says, programme goes to the Cabinet in the middle of March, so that's got to be added at that time. As Ian says, that there are cuts. That's the nature of the beast. The Scottish Government doesn't give the council sufficient money to spend, and a lot of the money they do give is spent on salaries and employment. So that's all I need to say at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the next meeting is Thursday, the 27th of March. And obviously this meeting was hugely experimental in turning the agenda around and trying to get more talking. We have gone, and I note, 16 minutes over time. Could you possibly email me any feedback that you have about whether you prefer it this way round or not? And or how you feel about speaking in this forum. We do it online, and we've maintained doing it online mainly because we like to make sure that councillors can get here and people who have meetings can get here, and that way we can also have participation of Thomas. But it does make it sometimes harder for people to feel that they can join in. If you have felt that you haven't been able to give any comments that you'd like to, please email me or give me a ring or pop round. Councillor Murdoch.
Just on that subject, West Kilbride have very successful hybrid meetings where you can join online or in person.
We don't have enough of the kit to be able to do the sound well enough at the moment. We've donated our own speaker to Cumbrae Forum, but I think if most of us were sitting in the forum, it'd be a bit difficult. If we had the kit, we could, and that could be something that we look into. All right, any views on a postcard, and look forward to seeing you in a month's time. So thank you very much for your time. Good night.
Right.
Thank you.